The security guard found Eleanor Prescott sobbing on the marble floor of her empty mansion, clutching a faded photograph to her chest. 20 years of wealth and power crumbled in an instant at the words of a teenage girl with familiar eyes. If you've ever felt lost or wondered if second chances exist, this story will change your heart forever. Like and subscribe to follow more incredible true stories of redemption that prove fate works in mysterious ways. Eleanor Prescott hadn't always been the cold, calculating CEO of Prescott Industries. At 45, she commanded respect in every boardroom, her name synonymous with success and ruthless business acumen. Her penthouse apartment overlooked Central Park, her garage housed vehicles worth more than most people's lifetime earnings, and her investment portfolio was the envy of Wall Street. But behind closed doors, Eleanor lived in a prison of her own making, haunted by the choice she made 23 years ago. The day had begun like any other. Eleanor was reviewing acquisition proposals in her corner office when her assistant interrupted with news of an unexpected visitor, a teenage girl insisting on seeing her. Eleanor never took unscheduled meetings, especially with strangers, but something in her assistant's voice made her curious. "She says it's about Lily," her assistant had whispered, and Eleanor felt the world tilt beneath her feet. No one had spoken that name in her presence for over 2 decades. The girl who walked into Eleanor's office looked about 16, with unruly dark hair and worn clothes that spoke of limited means. But it was her eyes, deep blue with flecks of gold, that made Eleanor grip her desk until her knuckles turned white. They were Robert's eyes. They were Lily's eyes. "My name is Maya Jenkins," the girl said, her voice steadier than her trembling hands. "And I think you knew my mother." She placed a yellowed newspaper clipping on the desk between them. Eleanor didn't need to look at it, she knew exactly what it said. The headline had been burned into her memory: "Local infant missing, parents desperate." Eleanor's carefully constructed world began to crumble. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said, her voice ice-cold despite the panic rising in her chest. But Maya didn't flinch. "3 weeks ago, my adoptive mother died of cancer," Maya continued. "Before she passed, she told me I wasn't born Maya Jenkins. She said my real name was Lily Prescott." The name hung in the air between them like a ghost. Eleanor hadn't heard it spoken aloud in 23 years, not since that terrible night when everything changed. She'd been just 22 then, unmarried and terrified when she discovered she was pregnant. Robert had promised to stand by her, but when his promising career took him overseas, Eleanor found herself alone with an infant and drowning in postpartum depression. "You're mistaken," Eleanor said, rising from her chair. "Please leave before I call security." But Maya stood her ground. "She told me everything. How she was your nurse when you had your breakdown. How you begged her to take your baby because you couldn't handle it anymore. She never meant to keep me forever, she just wanted to help until you got better. But then you disappeared, changed your name, and became this." Maya gestured at the opulent office. "She tried to find you for years." Eleanor's carefully constructed facade began to crack. The memories she'd suppressed came flooding back, the overwhelming despair, the sleepless nights, the moment of weakness when she'd handed her baby to the kind-faced nurse, just for a few days, just until she could breathe again. She'd never meant it to be forever. But then shame and fear had taken over, and Eleanor had reinvented herself, burying her past beneath ambition and success. "Get out," Eleanor whispered, but there was no force behind her words. "She kept everything," Maya said, pulling a small box from her backpack. "My original birth certificate. The clothes I was wearing. And this." She placed a small silver locket on the desk. Eleanor recognized it immediately, the locket Robert had given her when he learned she was pregnant, the one she'd placed around Lily's neck the day she was born. Eleanor's legs gave way, and she sank back into her chair. "Why are you here?" she asked, her voice barely audible. "To ruin me? To expose me?" Maya shook her head, tears filling those hauntingly familiar eyes. "I just wanted to know where I came from." "Mom, Janet, she made me promise to find you. She said you were sick, not bad. She said everyone deserves forgiveness." The word forgiveness broke something in Eleanor. 23 years of carefully constructed walls collapsed, and for the first time since that terrible night, she allowed herself to feel the full weight of what she'd done. The tears came without warning, violent sobs that shook her entire body. Security found them hours later, sitting on the floor of Eleanor's office surrounded by photographs and baby clothes, talking through tears and tentative smiles. The journey ahead would be long and painful. There were no easy answers, no quick fixes for 2 decades of separation. Eleanor would need to face the consequences of her actions, not just with Maya, but with herself. In the months that followed, Eleanor stepped back from her company to focus on building a relationship with the daughter she'd lost. She used her resources to establish a foundation supporting mothers with postpartum depression, ensuring no woman would feel as alone as she had. Maya moved into Eleanor's home, bringing life and laughter to rooms that had known only emptiness for too long. They found Robert too, living in Seattle with a family of his own. The reunion was awkward and tear-filled, but necessary for healing. He had never known about Eleanor's decision, having been told by her parents that she'd lost the baby and wanted no contact. Another lie in a web of deception that had kept 3 people apart for decades. 1 year after Maya walked into her office, Eleanor stood in the garden of her mansion, watching as her daughter graduated high school with honors. The cold, calculating CEO was gone, replaced by a woman who had learned that true wealth couldn't be measured in dollars or acquisitions. "I don't deserve this second chance," Eleanor confessed to Maya that night as they sat on the porch swing, looking at the stars. Maya took her hand, those familiar blue-gold eyes full of wisdom beyond her years. "None of us deserve the good or bad things that happen to us, Mom. We just have to make the most of the time we have." Eleanor squeezed her daughter's hand, marveling at how the universe had brought them back together against impossible odds. Their story wasn't perfect, it was messy and complicated and real. But it was theirs, and they were writing a new chapter together. Sometimes the things we run from are exactly what we need to face to find peace. Sometimes the people we hurt are the ones who teach us the most about forgiveness. And sometimes, when we least expect it, life gives us a second chance to make things right. If this story touched your heart, remember that redemption is possible for everyone. Like and subscribe for more stories that remind us of the power of forgiveness and the unbreakable bonds of family, even when those bonds are tested by time and circumstance.